Dude, I think you guys have mostly autism, and
Yes.
or maybe you're just smart.
Also,
I'm gonna
chlamydia.
go. This is a
Don't forget
weird
that
little
one.
yap fest, but I love all you guys.
He
Have a good
said-
day.
Hey,
okay,
fuck
man, have a
you,
good
Rick.
one. No. hello, not Nick.
Hey, that's me.
Hey, do you believe in God?
Hell no.
No.
Wait, do you?
I think that's crazy.
Do you? I'm not sure what kind of live I just joined. I was just.
Yeah, I can give you an argument for God's existence. Do you want to hear it?
I would love to.
Okay. Let's say we have a coin, right? If the coin lands on heads, 10 people exist. But if the coin lands on tails, 1 person exists. So let's say we flip the coin and you end up existing. Is your existence in that example better explained by the hypothesis that it landed on heads or it landed on tails?
It's a weird thought experiment, but of course, whichever answer was the 10 people existing.
Mm-hmm. So you would agree that hypotheses that predict more people existing better explain your existence, correct?
All else held equal? Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So if we take a look at how many people exist in relation to the amount of possible people that can exist, which is about Beth 2, a particular size of an infinite. I haven't really seen any other good counter hypotheses, but obviously theism has a perfect candidate explanation. A good God, or stipulated as a good God, would obviously want to create a large amount of people. Some people think that God would even want to create the infinite amount of people, the maximum amount of people that there are. But for right now, we can just say that theism predicts a modest amount of people. I think since God would want to create a large amount of people, that explains my existence really well. Because otherwise, my existence is insanely improbable. So you should be a
Wait,
theist.
I want to make sure I'm following. Are you saying because there are a lot of people, therefore God, or because there's not that many people, therefore God?
Because you exist, therefore God.
That doesn't really do much for me.
Well, you agree that hypotheses that predict more people better explain your existence, just like the coin landing on heads better explained your existence. I'm just saying that God would want to create a large amount of people, and if a large amount of people exist, that raises the probability of you in particular existing.
Why would God want to create? If you look at our universe, there's 2 trillion galaxies that each have like several hundred billion stars. So far, it seems like, I'm not going to say there's nothing out there, but it's pretty quiet out there. God certainly doesn't seem to be too interested in people at all.
Well, look, our sample space is so small. We don't know, like you said, we don't know what's out there. Some people have the intuition that God would, create the max amount of people, which is literally a different size, a particular size of an infinite. Beth 2, that's a insanely large amount of people. I don't hold that intuition. I just think that God would create a large amount of people. There's definitely other people that exist somewhere. I believe that strictly on the basis that it explains my existence better.
Yeah, this seems really, to me, this comes off as like really arbitrary and random. Like, what God are we even talking about? Are we talking about the Christian God? Is that the God?
No.
I'm about any God.
I'm just talking about a God that has the power and knowledge and desire for humans that explains my existence. Or not even humans in particular. We could have been anything, just things that exist with sentience. People.
But so in your God, in theory, could it be some guy in the future and we're all in a simulation?
Say that one more time.
Like your hypothetical God here that wants to create as many people as he can. Is a possible version of that God some guy running a simulation in the future simulating people?
I don't know what you mean by some guy, but if you're asking me if you can believe that we're in a simulation and this God exists, sure, that hasn't been ruled out.
No, I'm saying, yeah, but that the maker of the simulation in this case is
Mhm.
the God that you're talking about.
Sorry, I was talking to someone. You're gonna have to repeat that one more time.
I was saying not just that we live in a simulation and there's a God. I'm asking you if it's possible in your worldview that the God you're talking about right now
Mm-hmm.
is the person who made the simulation that we're living in.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Well, that's fine. If you, I mean,
Welcome
if you want to call that God,
brother.
if you want to just say, hey, we don't know where we came from, so whatever made us come here is God, even if it's just a guy like me who lives, a million years in the
Look,
future,
you
and
don't even.
we're
I
all just
don't
on this
like
desktop.
a lot.
Then that's
I'm
fine.
not saying you're doing this, but a lot of people do this. A lot of people speak of the word God with a lot of baggage in mind. We can just say it's very plausible that there's a really powerful, really knowledgeable being that has some particular desire for our existence. He wants to create a wide plethora of it, and that's a hypothesis that I think explains my existence very well. So I believe in that.
But in this version, this God clearly doesn't seem to be a nice guy. I mean, in your belief, you think
Maybe
that
he's
God
not.
is
Maybe he wants
okay.
to create all of us because he wants to make us suffer. I don't think that's true, but as
Yeah,
of
I
right
don't
now,
like.
that could be the case, given what we've
Yeah,
established.
well, I think there's a good argument for that,
There could be. There
certainly.
could
But
be.
I don't know. I want to really dig into what you're calling God right now, because if there's a possibility that he made us all just to suffer, then you're not talking about the same God that people pray to personally and thinks answers their prayers and has an impact in their
I
life.
probably believe in the same God that a lot of people believe in, but like what I'm arguing for is going to be a lot different than that. It's not going to probably resemble a lot of the things that you normally hear.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Cason's a heretic.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Because like if you think about like specifically like animal suffering, a lot of
Yeah.
that happens.
Yeah, that can be considered. It can be considered evidence against a good God.
For sure, but not of a God at all. If we're just talking, I mean, if there's, uh, I'll just go ahead and say if whatever it is, if there is something out there that created our life on purpose,
Mm-hmm.
no, it still seems pretty unlikely. Like you just keep referring to God. I've heard you use he a few times. Like there's like some guy.
Yeah, I'm not. That's just like how I, excuse my language there. You don't have to bake that into like what we're talking about. I'm not trying to like throw in anything extra.
Cason thinks God's a woman too.
What?
He's just anthropomorphizing.
Fucking queen. Yeah, I agree.
He's Ariana Grande.
Listen,
Yeah,
hey,
girl
you're
power.
vegan.
Girl power. I mean, look, I don't know. Here we are. We're just part of the universe here that can see itself. That's what we are, and it's pretty cool and pretty magical. And almost all version of God that I've ever heard anyone tell me seems like a really simplistic idea of it that's really underwhelming. Most of the time it comes from an old book written by people, and it's boring as hell, and they're probably wrong, and they're really confident about their things they believe, and it's just annoying and boring. But if you're just saying it sounds like you're saying you think there's just something intelligent out there that made people on purpose because he likes making people for good or bad. I mean, that's a fine thing to think, I think. That's fine. I don't necessarily agree, though.
Yeah. I also think that spaghetti is evidence for a spaghetti God.
That's weird.
Because there is spaghetti.
So,
There's a lot of it. That's
so
true.
are you familiar with the distinction between a personal explanation and a natural explanation?
Maybe you could explain it. I mean,
Yeah.
I know what all those words mean. So
Basically, there can be two types of explanations to things. The explanation for why there's a splatter on the ground could be, or it could be that there was a glass that fell. But there could also be a co-explanation, which is I dropped the glass. So there can kind of be an intention behind the naturalistic explanation. And so if we look at all spaghetti in the universe, right, obviously it has its natural explanations, like some people's mom's terrible cooking. Maybe sometimes they cook good, whatever. We don't have to talk about how good the spaghetti is. But given that a spaghetti god exists, obviously spaghetti would exist. So this just makes the likelihood ratio of our observation of spaghetti 1. And that's what we want. We want hypotheses that predict our observations. And so,
like, who is this voice?
what do you mean?
Is it Adelstein?
No.
Okay.
Do you disagree with my argument so far, sir? I'm talking to you, Daniel, since you wanted to butt in.
Oh, yeah, I'm not a Bayesian.
I don't give a shit.
I mean, I guess you should probably start eating more fiber then. Maybe you will.
I'm starting to wonder if I'm just fucking stupid. It sounded like you were. It sounded like you were saying. No, you might have lost me at the very end. Where you're talking about we want hypotheses that already account for what we know. Like we already know the spaghetti, so we're going to make a hypothesis that there's a spaghetti god.
Something is just evidence if it's going to increase the probability or likelihood of some hypothesis. I mean, that's one way you could think about evidence.
Yeah,
and
you could say that evidence is only evidence insofar as it like adds on to the prior probability of something.
Sure, that's one. Yeah, there are different ways you can think about evidence, but most people are going to think about evidence in such a way that something like spaghetti is going to be evidence for a spaghetti monster or a spaghetti god, because it's going to be predicted under that hypothesis, some type of spaghetti deity hypothesis, that spaghetti will exist. And when we go out and we find spaghetti, which we do, right, we see spaghetti existing, right, we're going to say, well, look, that's going to be predicted under that hypothesis. And so because it's predicted under that hypothesis or expected on that hypothesis, it's going to count as evidence for that hypothesis.
Right, so that's...
It's not strong evidence, right? It's not strong evidence because the prior probability...
No, it is strong evidence because the prior probability of a spaghetti god is not low.
Well,
well, let me give my argument. Let me give my reasons for that. Well, there's obvious common properties between a spaghetti god and a spaghetti, so there's familiarity there. I would actually argue that all grand explanatory theories have the same or relatively the same prior probability. We shouldn't be biased here.
No, I am.
So
look, a spaghetti god is like way more probable than an Abrahamic god. I mean, that seems
okay.
fair.
Well, now you're just okay. You're getting. Don't make me kick you.
Wait, I agree with you. You do too. This is all. You tricked me.
Not Nick is going crazy.
Dude, you didn't fucking. You don't believe in God, you liar.
Well, I do believe in God.
Oh gosh, Kaysen is an atheist. Finally,
No.
You don't believe in God.
Do you believe in love? Sorry.
I'm actually a Christian.
Christian atheist.
Yeah, maybe that's your middle name, you atheist.
No, I do believe in Jesus Christ. I do think Jesus Christ is God.
Kaysen's full name is Kaysen Christian KN.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, what did you think? Not Nick.
What I think?
What did you think about all the arguments? Every single one of them.
Alex O'Connor debunked them all. If you actually watched the video,
I actually thought it was pretty useful. It's a good way to spell out why people believe in a god that's like a dude. They just see dudes and they're like, well, there must be a reason for all these dudes. It's probably a big old dude up there.
Kaysen believes in a god that's a beautiful black woman. So his is that God's male.
Well, no, I don't, because a beautiful black woman has arbitrary limits, and I don't want arbitrary limits in my grand explanatory theories.
You heard
what limits do
Ethan thinks black women have limits.
Yeah, what kind of limits?
There's no limits on how beautiful a black woman can be.
Thank you very much.
We all have limits, guys. It's not.
Don't
It's
get
not
pro-
in
you're
relation to
there's a-
only
you're
You're gonna
beautiful.
get pro-choice last week on this live.
I'm not
okay?
saying-
There is a lower limit. They can be gorgeous or more or better. There's no upper limit.
Or downward limit. You could be hideously ugly.
No, nothing is stopping a black woman from doing what they want.
Yeah, and if God's a trans woman, he's still a woman God. And he's black.
Casey's a rag. Casey's a turf, so we don't have to go that far.
What?
He's a turf.
Daniel, have you seen that aesthetic deism stuff from Paul Draper that Joe Schmidt has been making, or he made a video on?
I watched some of it. I watched some of the video about the best argument for atheism.
Yeah,
That you've
yeah,
never heard of?
yeah.
I watched some of the video. Is it not just his evidential problem of evil, or am I missing something?
No, it's
It's way different.
it's basically saying that you shouldn't commit to tritheism because you can explain all the or you can explain the total evidence the same, if not, or yeah, I think they'd want to say it's better with just aesthetic deism. So usually if you have like a good God, you'd want to say that maybe the likelihood of some of our observations is higher given a good God, because a good God would be motivated to do those things given moral considerations. But what he wants to say is that for at least like all moral considerations a God could have, he also has aesthetic considerations. So if let's say a theist thinks that moral knowledge is evidence for God, specifically a God who has moral considerations in view, and that's why he created beings with moral knowledge. Well, the aesthetic deist would say that there's aesthetic things about that would also motivate God, or the aesthetic God, to create, so they can predict it just as well. And they're not committed to all the attributes. They have different ways that they generate their predictive power there.
Yeah, I mean, a Christian
God cares
is
about
committed to all
aesthetics.
these. The Christian is committed to all these attributes, right? Because God is divinely simple, but also three persons.
Oh my God.
And that makes sense. And
God
the
having
simplest being
consideration
is a being.
on aesthetics.
The simplest being is a being that's three persons. And if you can't understand that, then I don't know what to tell you.
I think there's a pretty
The whole
good
thing of the
objection.
argument is that, what better explains the world is a kind of God who would be created and telling like some kind of motivational or compelling or good story where there is suffering, but there's the ability to overcome it, and that's what accounts for suffering.
Yeah,
But
but
That's a
what
better
accounts for the
story
res-
than
wait, what
Brand
accounts
of
for all the
busting
evidence of the
our dick.
what accounts for all the evidence of the resurrection? How can this aesthetic God do
It would
that?
be it would be a good part of the story if a lot of people believed a guy came back to life when he didn't even exist. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
one of my objections is actually one of my objections to it, and this isn't like one that I think is the best. I think there's like I don't know, I'd say it just like undercuts the whole thing for me, but it's that the likelihood of these hypotheses given our background knowledge with how religious views or religious I don't know why I'm like struggling to say this. Basically, how God models have been purported throughout history. It aligns more with the actual triomny hypothesis more than it does aesthetic deism. So you
Wait,
could
does
say-
it? Because wouldn't it be like an aesthetic choice to have people like having a spiritual war?
See, that's actually another thing I would say. It's really hard. I mean, I'm sure Draper has this fleshed out somewhere because I'm only reading this from Joe, or like hearing this from Joe, but it seems like very arbitrary to me what we're even considering here as aesthetic. Like, it seems like anything can just be considered or, wanted for some aesthetic reason. So I don't know how to differentiate things that would, or from things that would actually be considered evidence or not evidence on like this kind of view.
Also, how does the evidence point to a triomny God? What other religions are going to be given here besides Christianity?
Daniel, if you're suppressing the truth and unrighteousness, that's not our problem.
That's okay, because what is your problem is the truth.
Okay, I'm letting up the big.
Can we let Dr. Truth up now?
Hell yeah! Blah, blah, blah. Isn't that a false dichotomy? Like, why can't God be aesthetic and omnipresent? Gotcha, bitch.
Preach it, sister.
Dude, I think you guys have mostly autism, and
Yes.
or maybe you're just smart.
Also,
I'm gonna
chlamydia.
go. This is a weird
that
little
one.
yap fest, but I love all you guys. Have a good day.
Okay, man, have a good one. No.
You scared?
That
Oh,
guy
gosh,
was goaded.
autism. Case and your autism scared him.
Oh goodness.
Get this guy out of here. Get him out of here.